Embarkation day for your cruise can be one of the most exciting days of the year. You've spent so much time and effort planning your cruise, but are you really ready for the busyness of Embarkation Day? There's a lot that goes on Embarkation Day. There's a lot you need to know. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through 15 things that happen on Embarkation Day and tell you some tips and tricks on how to maneuver those situations to ensure you have the most stress-free day possible on your next Embarkation Day. Hello everyone, my name is Zach. I am the Traveling Man and I've been on 23 cruises, a number that still amazes me sometimes. But throughout the course of those cruises, in addition to seeing some amazing places all around the world, I've also acquired a wealth of knowledge, and I like to share those tips and tricks and things I've learned about cruising with you here on the channel. So if you're new, make sure you go down below, hit that subscribe button. It would be great to have you here, part of our cruising community that we're building here on the Zach the Traveling Man YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to focus on Embarkation Day or boarding day, that very first day of your cruise. You've spent months, sometimes years, anticipating your cruise. You've planned out excursions. You've planned out your specialty dining. You know where you're going to be eating on the ship, but are you really ready for Embarkation Day? I'm going to walk step by step on what to expect on Embarkation Day, and as we go along, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks to alleviate some of that stress, to take some of it away, so that you ensure you have the most stress-free Embarkation Day possible, so you can get on your way to enjoying a fantastic cruise vacation. So number one, we're going to start with the arrival to the port, and you're like, well, that's pretty self-explanatory. If I'm going on a cruise, I have to show up, right? Absolutely. We're going to go a little bit deeper than that, though. What time do you show up at the port? A lot of people have asked me that recently. A lot of people may be going on their first cruise or maybe their first cruise in a while. The process is a little bit different now than it used to be. Now you have to have an assigned arrival time, and this is usually given to you by the cruise line, usually at the check-in process. And it's usually something that you're going to be able to pick for yourselves. These are usually 30-minute windows, maybe from 11 o'clock to 11:30. Whatever your assigned check-in time is, your assigned arrival time, that's when you are expected to arrive at the pier. So if you got a time, let's say from 12 to 12:30, you should show up in that time frame. Now these typically start around 10:30 or 11 o'clock in the morning and extend all the way up until about 90 minutes before sailing. And you do have to be on the cruise ship 90 minutes before scheduled departure. That's a Coast Guard rule. And if you're not, well, unfortunately, you're going to have a very good view of the ship leaving port without you. As I mentioned, you will pick this assigned arrival time during the check-in process. The check-in process usually occurs sometime within a couple of months of the cruise. It just varies depending on what cruise line you're going when check-in actually occurs. But this is one of the reasons why you want to check in as soon as you can. I like to be checking in for my cruise right at midnight when it opens up if I can, so I can pick my preferred arrival time. Well, what happens if you don't get your preferred arrival time? Does that mean you have to wait until your assigned arrival time? That's a very common question, one that folks ask a lot, and I will say from recent experience, no, it does not. You will be able to arrive as early as you want to. Let's say you don't have an arrival time till 12:30, but you really wanted to be there at 11. You can show up at 11 and take your chances. Usually what they're going to do is let everyone in with an 11 o'clock check-in time, and they'll have a separate line for folks with a later arrival time. And once they get everyone processed in that 11 o'clock line, then they'll take the folks who are there early or late or whatever the case may be. And keep in mind the reason that the cruise lines stagger the embarkation like this. They don't want at 12 o'clock noon all 2,500 passengers showing up ready to be checked in. That would take hours. It would delay the boarding process. They don't want that. So as much as you can, try to adhere to that arrival time. But if for some reason you have to be there earlier or later, just know that most of the time they're not even looking at the time on your boarding pass. And if they do look at it, they might just ask you to step aside and wait in a separate line until they can clear some of the line of the people who are there on time. Now, upon your arrival, tip number 2 is to have all documents in hand and ready to go. There's a lot of different documents that one might need to be able to board a cruise. You might need a passport or birth certificate, a government ID. You, of course, need your boarding pass. Make sure at the very least that you have your boarding pass and the boarding pass of kids or anyone else traveling with you in hand and ready to go. You are going to have to show that to even be able to enter the terminal building. So you want to make sure as soon as you get out of the car, you get your luggage to the porters, you go to the door to go into the terminal, you have that boarding pass in hand. Because that can then delay the folks in line behind you if you're having to scramble once you get to the door for your documents. So have everything in hand ready to go, because once you enter the terminal, that's only the beginning of the check-in process. And speaking of required documents, make sure that you check and double check with the cruise line on what documents you need for your cruise. You will not be allowed to sail on the cruise ship if you do not have those documents with you at embarkation. So once you enter the terminal at your arrival time with documents in hand, you will go through some sort of check-in process. There will be someone there. They'll scan your boarding pass. They'll scan your passport or birth certificate, your ID. They'll do checks of all your documentation that you brought to make sure you have the required documentation. And you might be saying, well, I already checked in. I checked in online. Yes, you checked in to get your boarding pass, but this is actually to ensure you have the required documentation in order to be able to go on the sailing. Now, once you've completed this check-in process, and that can come as soon as you enter the terminal, or it might come after you go through security, which is our next step. But once you have completed the check-in inside the terminal, you can usually put your passport and other documents like that away, but you do want to keep out your boarding pass because you are going to need to show that as you're actually boarding the ship. So step 4 is security. You will have to go through a security process similar to the airport security in order to board the cruise ship. Now, it's not as stringent as airport security. You don't have to take off your shoes and jackets and things like that. In most cases, they might ask you to in some cases. And also, if you have liquids inside carry-on bags, they're not, making sure that they're 3 ounces and below like they would on an aircraft. But otherwise, you're gonna have to scan all the bags you bring with you on board the ship. Everything that's in your bags is going to be seen by the scanner. You are going to have to walk through a metal detector. So just keep that in mind. You are going to have to go through a security process. And also keep in mind, if you carry like a pocket knife or things like that, those things are not allowed on a cruise ship. So make sure that you leave those in the car or that you leave those at home, because they are going to make you get rid of that before they allow you to board the ship. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you double check your person before you go into the terminal to make sure that you don't have any prohibited items on you that might get confiscated or disposed of when you go through the security process. Once you make it through the security process, in most instances, you will be guided to a waiting area where you will wait to board the ship. Now, boarding for cruise ships typically begins around 11 o'clock in the morning, 11 to 11:30. It just depends on a number of factors, because remember, the ship only arrived a few hours ago, loaded up with passengers. Those passengers had to get off the ship. The ship had to be clean and turned around for your arrival. So a lot of things happen between that ship arriving in port and then being able to board an entire new group of people. But typically, in my experiences, between 11 and 11:30 is typically when they start the boarding process. And they'll usually seat you in the waiting area in a way that it's sort of like a line that's not really like a standing in line. They'll direct you where to sit, you'll sit down, and then when boarding starts, you'll then proceed to board the ship. And you'll want to, again, have that boarding pass handy, because you will have to have that scanned either once you cross the gangway, once you get to the ship. At some point, you will have to show your boarding pass one more time in order to get on board the cruise ship. Now, once you step your foot over onto that cruise ship, you are now on a cruise. You are pretty much done with the tedious portion of the check-in process, having the paperwork, and you can put all that stuff away and begin to enjoy your vacation. However, there's still several more things you have to do, even on the cruise ship, to ensure that you're ready for your cruise. One of the first things you might want to do when you step on board the cruise ship is to rush to guest services to check for any last-minute upgrades. And this is one of the reasons why I like to get the earliest boarding time that I can. I like to get on the ship in one of the first groups, be one of the first people on board the ship, go right to guest services, be very polite, and ask, are there any upgrades available for the sailing? Because a lot of times folks will have to cancel at the last minute. Folks couldn't make the cruise. Some things happen. Some people have to cancel the cruise, unfortunately, but now those rooms are available. And the cruise line might be able to upgrade you, usually at a cost. I have done this many times now and been successful most of those times by just going up to guest services, being very polite, and asking if they have any staterooms available for upgrade. And it's came with pretty good results sometimes. One of my recent sailings on board Celebrity Summit, I was actually able to go from an interior stateroom, which was the room I booked and was expecting to have when I boarded the cruise, all the way up to a balcony for only $150 for a 4-day cruise. That was a pretty good deal and a substantial savings than doing it myself whenever I booked the cruise. If you want to do an upgrade, if you want to check, make sure that's the first thing you do as soon as you board the ship on embarkation day. And good luck to you. And while you're at guest services and in that vicinity, make sure you take care of any guest services related items. Maybe you have questions, or maybe there's things you need to sort out about your reservation, or things you need to make sure are in place that you need for your cruise. Whatever the case may be, if you need to go to guest services, you want to go to guest services as soon as you can on embarkation day, because believe me, that line gets very long throughout the course of embarkation day. There will be folks, I've seen the line 30 to 40 people deep sometimes on embarkation day in the afternoon. So if you get there in the morning and you're early on, go directly to guest services and take care of any issues that you need to as soon as you can. It will save you time, stress, and it will get you relaxing a lot sooner than going later in the day and having to wait in a very long line. All right, so now we're already on step 9. Now maybe you've boarded the ship and you don't want to go to guest services and check for an upgrade. Maybe you don't need to go to guest services at all. Or maybe you did both of those things and now you're ready to go to your room. Well, you can go to your room and drop your bags in most instances. Most cruise lines will allow you to go immediately to your room. Maybe you've carried on big bags, you want to go drop them in your room. Most of the time they'll be okay with this. However, if it's before 1 or 1:30, that's typically when the staterooms are all clean and all ready to go for you to move into them and to start your cruise inside of your room. If it's before that, most of the time they're going to want you to just go drop your bag and leave. They're not going to want you to stay around, especially if your room's not been clean yet. Maybe your stateroom attendant is still nearby in the hallway working on some rooms. Just go drop your bags and immediately leave. This is also a good opportunity for you to pick up your SeaPass card, your sign and sell card. Depends on what that thing's called. Essentially your key card that you get that's going to be your access to pretty much everything. That's usually going to be located on your stateroom door once you first arrive to your stateroom. So you might want to grab that. Now if you show up after 1:30 or after they announce, they'll generally make an announcement once rooms are ready. They'll come over the PA and say, your staterooms are now available for you to enjoy. You can proceed there, you know, at your leisure. Then you can go and stay in your room as long as you want to. But if it's before that announcement's been made and your room's been ready, or if there's still, sometimes they'll put a sign up on some of the doors saying your room's not ready yet, drop your bags, get your SeaPass card, and leave, and let the stateroom attendants do their work, and then come back later when your room is ready and enjoy it. The next thing you want to do after you boarded the ship is go enjoy that first lunch, because you're on a cruise now. That first lunch is always one of my favorite things about boarding a ship, just to go up to the buffet. Always the buffet is going to be open. That's going to be probably the go-to for most people. Also, any restaurants located around the pool area or on the Lido deck in general, they're all going to be open. However, don't expect main dining rooms and specialty restaurants to be open on Embarkation Day. In some cases those might be, but those are typically a part of special packages. I know Royal Caribbean has their Key program and they do offer an embarkation lunch in one of the main dining rooms. So if you're a part of that, yeah, the main dining room is open for you. But for most people, the main dining room is not open on Embarkation Day on most cruise lines. You will want to go to the buffet. You will want to go to one of the poolside restaurants. Think like Guy's Burger Joint on Carnival cruises. Just the general burger grill that they have, the Mass Grill on Celebrity cruises. But otherwise, go to the buffet, enjoy a nice lunch, and just enjoy that first Embarkation Day meal on board your cruise. And this leads me into my next tip. Tip number 11 is drink and dining packages being for sale. And you are going to see this probably in the atrium on the ship when you board, and also definitely in the buffet area. There are going to be crew there and they're going to be trying to sell you on dining packages. These are usually packages ranging anywhere from one night dining package all the way up to an entire cruise worth of dining packages, that they're trying to sell you specialty dining reservations. They're really going to be trying to sell these pretty hard. And also the drink packages. You'll see usually on the pool deck, also in the atrium, maybe at the buffet also, they'll be trying to sell you at the last minute their all-inclusive drink package, because all cruise lines have one. Carnival has their Cheers package. They'll be trying to sell that. Also their Bottomless Bubbles, which is their soda package. So if you get to Embarkation Day and realize, I forgot to book a drink package and now I want one, don't worry, you absolutely can book one as soon as you board the ship on Embarkation Day. And pretty much, I think, all the way up until Sailaway, they'll be available throughout the cruise. I think at pretty much any bar you'll also be able to do that, but you'll definitely see people trying to sell you those drink packages and those dining packages as well. Speaking of dining reservations, tip number 12 is to make those when you board the ship. Maybe there's some specialty dining that you want to try out and you weren't able to get a reservation before the cruise. Often on Embarkation Day, those reservations will be available because, again, folks will cancel, not be able to make it. And sometimes I think the cruise lines just hold back some general specialty dining reservations that they didn't advertise in advance. So if you want to eat at a particular specialty restaurant on your cruise and you were not able to get that reservation ahead of the cruise on the cruise planner or the app or whatever, then you want to proceed to that specialty restaurant as soon as you can on Embarkation Day to ensure you get a reservation. You can just go ask if there's any reservations available. And in my experience, most of the time there are. So don't be disheartened if you are on your cruise planner right now and you see that restaurant that you really want to eat at on your upcoming cruise is sold out. Go on Embarkation Day, and in most cases there will be a reservation. At the very least, they can put you on a wait list and call you if someone cancels. So make sure you get that taken care of. Main dining room reservations also, if you have the My Time dining or the select dining, essentially the dining where you can go anytime between like 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. Usually when you board the ship and join the ship's Wi-Fi, you will be able to make those dining reservations in the cruise line's app. But if you're not able to do that, or if you need assistance doing that, then you do want to proceed to the main dining room on embarkation day, and someone there will be able to help you make those reservations. And let me stress how important it is to make those as soon as you can, as far ahead as you can in advance, because those will fill up quite quickly. So if you do have a preferred time you want to dine in the main dining room each night, then you want to make sure you make those as soon as you can, either prior to the cruise, but if not then, on embarkation day. And in addition to that, any show reservations you also want to make as soon as you can. And this typically is not required on most cruise lines. Usually cruise lines will just allow you to show up to the theater each night or each day, whatever time the show is scheduled for, and you'll be able to go in and get whatever seats are available. However, I do know that some of the bigger cruise ships, like some of Royal Caribbean's mega ships, on some of their busier cruises, they will implement a reservation system, and you will have to have reservations for certain shows. So just make sure if there's a certain show that you want to see and you know that a reservation is required, make sure that you proceed to that venue on embarkation day and get that reservation made and secure your time so that you know you're going to be able to see that show. All right, so now we've boarded the ship, we've taken care of any guest services issues, we've gone to our room, we've dropped our bags, we've got our SeaPass card, we've had lunch, we've taken care of any dining reservations or show reservations that we need to. Now it's time to do the most important thing, the most important step to take on embarkation day, which is muster drill. Muster drill is required for every passenger in order to sail on the cruise. And ever since cruising resumed after the shutdown, most cruise lines now have e-muster, electronic muster. Essentially, the muster drill you're going to be able to do at your own leisure, at your own pace, on your own time. This usually starts with a couple of prompts on the cruise line's app. Maybe they'll have you watch a safety video. They'll show you how to put on your life vest. They'll tell you some general safety steps that you might want to take throughout the course of your cruise. And the last step of that is to report to your muster station. And each person on board the ship has been assigned a muster station. It's so important, that muster station, and you're gonna be required to visit that muster station on embarkation day. It's very quick, I promise. You're gonna walk up, they're gonna take a look at your card and see what your room number is. They're gonna tell you just a few general safety tips, where to go in case of an emergency, you know, whether or not to bring your life jacket, how to get in contact with ship's medical, things like that. So it's a very quick, very simple process. Not much is required of you other than just showing up. So make sure you complete that as soon as you can on embarkation day, because it is required by law. And then after you've completed muster drill, like I like to say, we've done muster drill, we are officially on a cruise. So step 15 is to relax and enjoy your cruise. By now, your stateroom's probably available. You can go up and unpack. In a few hours, you're probably going to have a Sailaway party or some sort of Sailaway event. You might just want to hang out on your balcony and enjoy the Sailaway. But you're officially on a cruise now. And whatever you do after you've completed that muster drill on embarkation day, it's all up to you. It's your cruise now. You're on board. You don't have any more documents to show. You don't have any place to be. You don't have anything to do other than relax and enjoy your cruise. And I really hope that you do. Hey, I really hope that these tips were helpful for you. I really hope it helps you to get a little bit more insight on things to expect on embarkation day. And I hope I was able to give you a few tips at least that you might not have known before, a few tricks on how to navigate embarkation day. But I want to thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure you go down below and give me a thumbs up. Also, make sure if you're not already that you subscribe to the channel. I have a lot more cruise content to come very soon. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you on the next adventure.